In modern times, we are so often convinced that every time we get ill or feel low, a medical condition is responsible. I've come to finally realize that this isn't always the case. Our minds actually have more control over us than we understand it to have. And by the end of my story, you will realize this too. There was a time in my life when I felt really alone. I had lost all of my friends and my spirit was low. I felt tired and lazy all the time, and I found it difficult to concentrate. At this time, even the dance classes I attended that had once offered me an escape and so much pleasure could not bring me out of the dull disposition I found myself in. My dance instructor noticed that I was a bit lost and offered me some friendly advice, which I welcomed as I really began to lose focus in every facet of life. She believed that I needed some spiritual guidance and referred me to a good friend of hers who is a priest. Mr. Vaipuri was kind and extremely caring and guided me as best as he could.
Of the third one, 1990.
However, I really wanted a second opinion. That's when my guru directed me to Dr. Kolappan, who has been a sheer inspiration and guiding light in my life.
Now, I have listened to your story and I've examined you, and from your story and from your examination, all the things point out to not really a physical problem that you have, but something that is altering how the body actually works.
The Hindu festival he asked me to observe has transformed me holistically and left me in absolute awe of Hinduism. My journey began at Bharatanatyam dance class. We were being taught the various mudras of Lord Shiva, which I really didn't understand back then. My dance colleagues seemed so content and joyful, learning and practicing the steps, but as much as I tried, I remained consumed in my own world. This confusion became apparent to my dance guru, and she offered to help me figure out what was wrong with me.
Natasha, are you okay?
I don't know. I can't concentrate. I've been standing in your class, but my mind is elsewhere. I'm exhausted. I'm here. I don't really want to be here. I don't even know what's going on with me.
That's a surprise.
She suggested I visit a spiritual person whom she believed could help me with my plight to find myself. And she explained that he would use astrology to help me. How, I thought, could an astrological reading help shed light on my life? And what bearing would it have anyway?
You will notice that modern Hindu youth like yourself, you tend to question the rationale behind the various religious rites and the sacraments. You ask yourselves, what is the purpose of these various observances, these ceremonies? Why should they be observed at all? And of what purpose or relevance are they?
Mr. Vaipuri explained in detail about our rich cultural heritage and that astrology is an ancient science spread from India to the rest of the world.
Remember, the moon might be regarded by the Western world as a piece of dead rock. But in Hinduism and in astrology, we still regard the moon and its influence over the earth as being extremely important.
He stated that there is a direct relationship between the planets, especially the moon, their astrological positioning and the human mind, which was quite interesting to learn.
Some people may say the moon doesn't have any effect on our lives on earth, but would be amazed. Would you believe that the moon doesn't have any effect? What would you say, Natasha?
Well, logically, I'd believe that it doesn't have any effect.
Alright, what if I were to tell you that the ocean currents, the tides, the rising and the falling of the sea levels, even winds and the rotation of the earth on its axis, all depend on the phases of the moon. When the moon is at attraction or gravitational attraction is so very strong. You find it pulls all the waters of the ocean, and then we have low tides. The same thing happens to your biorhythms and even your mind. It tends to be affected by the phases of the moon. So on this particular night of Maha Shivarathri, which is Amavasya night, in other words, it's new moon night. You don't see the moon in the sky. So the effect of the moon is almost null. Right? And that is when they say your concentration levels, the ability to meditate on the absolute, becomes so very, very powerful.
I was thoroughly amazed when the priest was able to offer accurate details of the way I felt at the time of reading my almanac. I felt transparent as he read my life like an open book.
According to what I read here, Natasha, you're a very attractive person, a very intelligent person, kannadagan. But recently, it shows that the way things are happening now, you feel that all the chips are against you. Nothing you do is ever working out the way you want it to.
He gained extensive insight on my life and the emotional state I was immersed in, and he appeared sincere about pulling me out of my dull mindset. Caring and sincere as he seemed, when he lit a block of camphor and incense stick and made me offer this to the idol of Lord Nadaraja, a feeling of discomfort washed over me. Why is he making me do this? I questioned. But as much as I was unable to fathom the reason behind the ritual, the priest seemed to gain some sort of inner peace and strength from making the offering. Before I left, the priest invited me to join him and his congregation at his temple on the night of Maha Shivarathri, following a day-long fast.
And on the night of Maha Shivarathri, you can be there whilst we are observing the Abhishekam, while we are performing the Abhishekam for the Lingam of Lord Shiva, and you can join the rest of the congregation in meditation, vigil, penance, austerities, fasting, and contemplating on Lord Shiva.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
I went to Mr. Vaipuri, like you said. He took my name down, he took my date of birth, he opened the book and he started predicting my future, my past and the present. Then he started lighting a camphor and I think I'm more confused than ever now.
Probably felt that to help you and would be the option. Praying for you would be an option. And lighting of the camphor is just also to invite a spiritual presence to maybe help with guiding you. And the cloves and the ashes, the vibhuti, it's all part of spirituality. Those are things that he probably used to help you.
My dance instructor tried to make me understand the significance of the priest's actions and rituals. But since I still felt heavy, she advised me to look within myself and locate the source of all the negativity and lack of motivation I felt. To help allay my fears of a physical malady, my guru suggested I visit a medical practitioner, which I readily agreed to. But to spiritually fortify myself, she proposed I join the Maha Shivarathri festival, where one pointed focus is the ultimate accomplishment. Walking up to the temple, I could sense the energy that enveloped the place. All of the faces I caught sight of wore expressions of glee and an eagerness to make their offerings. Being at the temple reminded me of the doctor I was introduced to by my guru. Dr. Kolapan mentioned that through his examination of me, he noticed that my mind was the root cause of all my problems. He suggested that I use the night of Maha Shivarathri to reflect upon my consciousness, which he explained is superior to the mind.
If we go to Shivratri, stay awake the whole night, we drown ourselves in bliss of Lord Shiva's wonderful blessing. We stay awake, we listen to the devotional kirtans and bhajans and chanting discourses. We are dipped into all that wonderful excitement and blissful surrounding.
There I was listening to the sweet melodies sung in praise of Lord Shiva, and I thought of Mr. Vaipuri. Away from darkness into the light, I felt myself traveling as I joined in the chorus.
Just join the millions of devotees on the night of Maha Shivarathri, and you'll be amazed at what a difference it's going to make in your life. And prayer always leads us away from darkness into the light.
Lingeshwara Mahadeva, Lingeshwara Mahadeva, Lingeshwara Mahadeva, Lingeshwara Mahadeva, Pragadishwara Chidambaranada, Pragadishwara Chidambaranada, Pragadishwara Chidambaranada, Pragadishwara Chidambaranada, Lingeshwara Mahadeva, Lingeshwara Mahadeva, Pragadishwara Chidambaranada, Pragadishwara Chidambaranada, Lingeshwara Mahadeva, Lingeshwara Mahadeva, Lingeshwara Mahadeva.
I began to feel less heavy as I partook in the communal rituals. A tray laden with bulwa leaves was sent around the temple until every person had one. Each of us offered our leaf to the Shivalingam, and it was as I was making my offering that I was reminded of the humbling story of the animal hunter in the forest.
So, a hunter who has performed such bad karma previously, in the last part of his life reaches great realization that all his actions that he was performing was wrong, and in a couple of days before he dies, he changes the way he is. He then allows the next birth of his to take off in a better position than he was.
Mahadeva, Lingeshwara Mahadeva, Pragadishwara Chidambaranada, Pragadishwara Chidambaranada, Lingeshwara Mahadeva, Lingeshwara Mahadeva, Lingeshwara Mahadeva.
Karma is a wonderful concept in that whatever we do today, the only time separates that fruition of that particular action. And Shiva is called Mahakalaya, meaning he is the great timekeeper. He is beyond time. He is the controller of time. In fact, when he came into existence, time came into existence. He is beyond time, space and causation. So Shivratri is that, just one aspect of it teaches us that karma is a wonderful thing. That if I believe that if I plant wonderful seeds, wonderful plants, wonderful flowers, wonderful fruit will come up.
In other words, the basis of Hinduism is do good and be good. We cannot live this life only for ourselves, Natasha. We are interconnected by millions of fibers, and like sympathetic threads, our actions run as causes and they come back to us as effects. And that is the sum total of Hinduism, the law of cause and effect.
The 4 janams of the night were marked by sweet treats and words of love and devotion for Lord Shiva. The scents that filled the mandir were calming and sweet, and the atmosphere was one that inspired me to reflect on life and focus my mind. Again, Dr. Kolapan's words resonated in my mind.
Our minds are a reflection of everything that I've been thinking about, everything that I filled my mind up with. So if I fill my mind up with agitation, with disturbance, with misery, with everything that is not inspiring, then I'll reflect it. So the mind being like a sponge, if we take the same sponge, we dip it into clean water, same sponge into soapy water, same sponge into dirty water. Whenever we squeeze that sponge, what we dipped it into comes out. So if I look at you and you reflect poor inspiration, poor ambition, poor enthusiasm for doing anything in life, that's what's inside of you.
When it came to the Abhishekam or the bathing of the linga, only pure substances were used. I understood the symbolism of this ritual as I had questioned Dr. Kolapan about it, and whilst the Abhishekam was being performed, I focused on my mind and asked God for my consciousness to be cleansed and healed from all impurities that had been plaguing it.
We see these materials being poured, we identify with the qualities of those materials being used, and we ask God, please bathe me like they bathe you with all these beautiful materials. Please bathe my mind.
As the night progressed, I concentrated on the Shivalingam. Its shape, which symbolizes so much, began to make more sense to me, and I found myself using the elliptical shape of the lingam to shape my thought patterns and my rise to God consciousness.
If you look at the elliptical structure of the lingam, there is not a single process in the world that does not go by that shape.
Waves in the ocean, the spinning of the earth on its axis, the revolution of the earth around the sun, the rotation of the moon and the revolution of the moon around the earth.
They all move in this. So our great rishis gave this form of Shiva, this particular elliptical form, to symbolize that, to symbolize this wonderful workings. Remember, the dance of Shiva is the dance that's taking place inside me and you. As our hearts are functioning, me and you sit here, and our hearts, we're not telling our hearts to operate. We're not telling our liver to digest. We're not telling our kidneys to operate. But the Lord Shiva, in the atoms in each one of them, is dancing.
As he is captured here, performing the Shiva Tandava.
The energy pervading the atmosphere on the night was enlivening. I left the temple feeling as if I had returned from a wonderfully therapeutic journey. I felt spiritually charged and elevated to a level of extreme bliss, and I found Dr. Kolapan's words of reason resonating in my head.
Each one of us, the beauty of Bhagwan's grace and the beauty of, remember we are children of God, we have sparks of divinity in each one of us. But the divinity has been clouded by all the unnecessary nonsense that we have over the years put around it. We need somebody like the sculptor who goes and just knocks off all the unnecessary things. He says the murti is already in the stone. I just have to knock off all the unnecessary parts of the granite and the murti will be there. So similarly in our lives, I'm looking for that sculptor. And that sculptor is effort. That sculptor is self-sacrifice. That sculptor is self-inquiry. It is self-realization. Finally, it will lead to that ultimate of God realization.
People and planets, the moon and the mind, the rituals and being spiritual, it seemed to make so much more sense. Everything was interconnected.
Your actions should take you closer towards realizing God. The thought waves in your mind should take you closer towards realizing God. The basis of Hinduism is do good and be good.
beautiful, positive, energizing energy because it tells me I am the architect of my own future. I can alter that which I put effort into.
What is prayer really? You might have had so many different definitions of the word prayer. It is a panacea for all ills, for all maladies, and for all things that trouble the human spirit. And that is prayer.
When I returned to dance class, I wished that I could have taken more advantage of my Hindu faith, that I could have spent more time learning the mudras of Lord Shiva and perfecting them like the rest of my dance colleagues have. I resolved then to use each future Shivarathri to focus on what I learned. As Dr. Kalupin says, we are the architects of our own future, and we can make the difference by sowing the seeds of goodness today and allowing fruition to take place in the future. I believe in these strong words, and I now have immense confidence in my faith and myself.